Yeah, look, young nigga, I got so much old money on my mind. I'm writing music, smoking, drinking, probably fucking every night. I'm clocking in because you know I need that rolling on my arm.
What's going on YouTube? It's your boy Robert here, back with a brand new video. So today, as you can tell by the title and thumbnail, it's going to be something a bit different, at least to the channel. We're just going to be talking about NBA and all the free agency moves that have happened the past couple days. Yesterday was something absolutely insane, especially for the Los Angeles Lakers, which we will get into a little bit later. But to start things off, we're going to ultimately talk about Trae Young and his contract. The man deserves this money, bro. There's no question at all. A 5-year worth up to $207 million. There's no question. He outperformed himself. He showed the world what the Atlanta Hawks could do as such a young team. I don't think the Atlanta Hawks were expected to even make it out to the first round. Some people had them. Some people thought they were going to lose to the Knicks, which we'll get into a little bit later, didn't perform that great and just absolutely disappeared in that first round. But credit to Nate McMillan. The man took on the interim head coach role and ultimately turned that season around for this squad. Is it credit to him? Is it credit to the players for believing in Nate? Or is it credit to Nate coaching them? Whatever the case may be, I have no idea. But credit to the Atlanta Hawks for not only securing Trae Young for the next 5 years, but for performing the way they did and really putting this team on the map. It was beyond me how that even happened. I had them losing to the 76ers originally, but then after game one, I was like, hold on. And I talked about it on the podcast with Montana and all of them, but my goodness. The fact that they even outperformed themselves and got to where they were, credit to them absolutely. Another signing for them, Gorgui Dieng, a huge move in my eyes. He can shoot the ball really well. He can get rebounds really well, which you already get that from Clint Capella, no question. But if he's going to be behind Clint Capella, I mean, shoot, you're guaranteed another double-digit rebounder for you off the bench, as well as somebody that can step out on the perimeter and spark threes. It's just an amazing pickup. Now, if he doesn't ultimately play behind Clint Capella and he plays that third role behind, Big O, a.k.a. Onyeka Okongwu, I mean, then at that point, it is what it is. It's totally understandable. There's no really debate behind that. Overall, I just think that's a huge move for them. I personally wanted Gorgui on the Miami Heat. Obviously, I'm a Miami Heat fan, you know what I'm saying? But, I mean, shoot. It's a great move to add depth as well as to add more bigs to that squad, because there were some games that we ultimately saw the Atlanta Hawks just couldn't compete with some teams because of size. They were undersized in some factors with, Big O not being able to get as many rebounds as he could. Capella dealing with injuries, so depth came into a factor. Whatever the case may be, now they secured one with Gorgui Dieng, and that's absolutely a big move for them in my eyes. Solomon Hill, a lot of people hate him because of the whole LeBron injury during the regular season. Personally, as a Miami Heat fan, I love the dude. Great man off the field, or off the court, I should say. Was always so active with our social media, beat writers and all of that crap. So credit to Solomon Hill for locking in that 1-year deal. The Atlanta Hawks have a lot of potential. But the biggest news besides Trae Young's contract extension was just happened about maybe an hour ago from me filming this right now. John Collins re-signing for 5 years, $125 million. Do I think he deserves this contract? Absolutely. The man is a freak of nature, and I think we're seeing him finally develop his game more and more, having the ability to shoot the rock as he did in this postseason run, having the ability to just be the it factor if Trae's playing slow, or even if Kevin Huerter's playing slow. Whatever the case may be, John Collins time and time again stepped up and proved to not only the Atlanta Hawks, but proved to the NBA world that he is a freak of nature and that he is a prolific athlete. Like, he proved to the world that he is deserving of this contract. There were a lot of questions going into this season if he's going to, if the Atlanta Hawks were going to stay with him and believe in him and his ability, and if he was going to improve and step up. Well, shoot, he did exactly just that. So credit to John Collins for having a phenomenal regular season as well as a phenomenal postseason, and just improving his game more and more, and developing things that some people maybe didn't expect or didn't even know about him too much. But moving on from the Atlanta Hawks, we're going to go to the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, they, brought back Blake Griffin. I think that's no question. You kind of have to. Just run it back with the squad. Ultimately, a huge, in my eyes, deal, because we'll talk about it a little bit later, but with Spencer Dinwiddie leaving, you had to get that, backup point guard who you can trust. And I think Patty Mills fits that role absolutely to the T. The man has been a phenomenal off-the-bench player for the San Antonio Spurs for years. I could just speak highly of this man. There's no negativity coming from my mouth of Patty Mills. He has the ability to score the ball when you need it. And it's a perfect fit. It's a perfect fit, especially with Spencer Dinwiddie leaving. There's no question about it. You're behind Kyrie. If somebody gets hurt, you have depth in Patrick Mills, or I should say Patty Mills. There's just no question about that. Moving on, Bruce Brown. He obviously returns on a one-year deal. Credit to Bruce Brown. There were some questionable things that happened in that in that Milwaukee Bucks series. And a lot of people were questioning, why are you shooting the ball when Kevin Durant's hot? Why are you shooting the ball when this, that, and the third? Whatever the case may be, he still got that team in certain games into positions to win ball games. And there's no question about it. Bruce Brown played great, except for points, or except for little aspects of games. And that's not good. It is what it is. You can't knock a man for having bad games or whatever the case may be. Moving on, my guy, Mr. Black Belt himself, James Johnson. You lose Jeff Green to the Denver Nuggets, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and you have to sign someone who has the ability to play defense as, if not a bit better than Jeff Green. Now, shooting the ball, Jeff Green is a bit better, obviously, offensively, but in my eyes, I think this was more of a defensive-minded move to make sure that they still had that composure of their defensive ability when that second unit comes in with Bruce Brown, Patty Mills now, James Johnson, whatever the case, DJ if he gets some minutes, whatever the case may be. You don't lose that much of a presence defensively with Jeff Green leaving. You gain, if anything, with James Johnson. And so I think it's a perfect fit defensively, of course. And I know I've said it a lot in the past couple minutes, but he's a huge defensive presence in my eyes. And I think this was a big signing for them, especially just losing Jeff Green. I think losing Jeff Green will hurt a bit offensively, but if the Brooklyn Nets can stay healthy, I think there's no doubt in my mind. And they're honestly, this year, if they stay healthy, there's absolutely no excuse for this team to not win an NBA championship this year. Absolutely. There's just no excuse. We can have a conversation. That could be a big debate, whatever the case may be, but that's just my take on that. Moving forward, we're going to go, obviously, to the Charlotte Hornets. They ended up trading Devontae Graham to the freaking New Orleans Pelicans. And I'm going to be real with you. I think they got maybe a first-round draft pick out of this. And sure, that's nice. And maybe now this solidifies LaMelo and just Terry Rozier, them two, that, calling that whatever the case may be. But I really kind of like this Ish Smith deal. You lose Devontae Graham, ideally, so you didn't have to pay him that type of money. So you sign Ish Smith, who has heart, who is a dog, and we've seen that time and time again in his run in his NBA career. The man will come in off the bench and provide you whatever the case may be, whether it's 10, 15 points. He will spark whatever you need. If you need some sort of offensive, fire, Ish Smith will come off the bench and provide that for you. Now, as much as Devontae Graham is a hooper, and as much as they probably did not want to get rid of him, it's the NBA. It's a business. It happens. Maybe they just didn't want to pay the money that he wanted, whatever the case may be. And so for them to sign Ish Smith, I like that move a lot. Does it improve their team? If you want to look at it, I guess. But in my eyes, the Hornets will just continue to be what they are as LaMelo slowly develops and improves more and more, eventually getting more minutes and being that focal point of that offense to just continue to be as successful as he was last year. And so I think we see somewhat of a slight improvement, but to be honest with you, the East did improve in my eyes. I think we see, the bottom feeders of the East, quote unquote, increase their rankings and improve slightly with some acquisitions and some free agent signings that did occur, in the offseason. Now, to start with this Chicago Bulls team, I am just beyond words. I am beyond words. Now, DeMar DeRozan, obviously, was a big name yesterday for the Chicago Bulls as they were trying to get him day one, ultimately couldn't get him day one. But for them to land DeMar DeRozan on a 3-year, I believe it was, hold on, let me see if I can get the proper contract here. A 3-year, was it 85? Let me see. 3-year, $85 million contract for only Thaddeus Young, Al-Farouq Aminu, a first-round pick, and I believe it ended up being as well as a second-round pick. It's just absolutely insane. This team, forget about this DeRozan move, and obviously we got Lonzo Ball as well, one of my favorite players even before he joined, the NBA. I've been following Lonzo Ball for the last God knows how many years. I've been a huge fan of the Ball family as a whole. A lot of people can say, "Oh, you're just this, that, whatever the case may be." You can't doubt my fandom in an aspect of LeVar Ball and what he's done with those kids. In my eyes, which we'll talk about, I guess, a bit. Oh, no, we already spoke about the Hornets. In my eyes, I think Jello might be one of the sleepers for that Charlotte Hornets team. Yes, he's going to be playing summer ball with that team. I think he's going to eventually get a spot on that roster and be able to finally prove to the world that the man is a hooper. The man is dedicated. He's committed. He's going to prove he's going to prove a lot of teams wrong as to why he wasn't picked up. And so that's just one note. Now going back to the Chicago Bulls and Lonzo Ball, this was a phenomenal fit. There's no doubt in my mind, especially bringing on Alex Caruso as well. I personally love this team right now with the moves that they made, from Lonzo Ball being now their starting point guard in my eyes, to Zach LaVine. That backcourt is going to be insane. You have Lonzo's playmaking ability as well as his defensive phenom, whatever you can say about him. His defensive presence will help Zach LaVine not have to, care too much or show too much impact there and focus primarily on his offense like he has been. The man has not had help for so many years. Zach LaVine has talked about how he wants a respectable contract and all of this, and he deserves it. The man has showed his loyalty to the Chicago Bulls. He has given everything in his heart and soul to this organization and, of course, this city, that he deserves any contract that he wants. There's no question about that in my mind. And so for them to actually add Lonzo Ball, his defensive presence, as well as his offensive ability, in my eyes, he has been improving. He's just been in horrible situations in the sense of, year one with the Lakers, then LeBron coming in, or whatever the case may be. It was just a poor fit, and then getting traded to New Orleans, where they didn't want him to do certain things. The storyline behind Lonzo's career so far has been, in my eyes, horrible. He's been unlucky in situations, and I think now, being a perfect fit in Chicago, there's no doubt in my mind, not only have you seen him improve slowly his shooting performances from the field as well as his three-point percentages, I think we see now an improvement in all stats, from points to assists to rebounding. He's a triple threat, whatever you want to call it. He's everything and more. I love Lonzo Ball. For this team, this is going to be a huge impact. I think the Bulls finish top 5 in the East. I know some of my friends are diehard Bulls fans, and we're saying, we're a top 5 in the NBA. To be honest with you, I don't agree with that statement. That is a very hot take, but I will agree that this team could be a top 5, top 4 team in the East, and I'm excited. The second Lonzo Ball joined the damn Chicago Bulls, I instantly turned off my notifications for the New Orleans Pelicans and immediately turned them on for the Chicago Bulls. Wherever Lonzo goes, I go. You know what I'm saying? I've been a huge fan, and so I got to support him. There's no doubt in my mind that the Chicago Bulls will do, and if not improve, this year, because the signings that they made, from Lonzo Ball to Alex Caruso to DeMar DeRozan, ultimately they did get rid of Daniel Tice, but just a couple minutes ago, they did, in fact, sign Tony Bradley. I don't think we'll get that many minutes, but it is what it is. That's a whole another conversation in itself. I think this team alone, from DeMar Alonzo Caruso, Kobe White, Zach LaVine, Nikolai Vucevic. Do I have the roster pulled up? Right. Look, there's no doubt in my mind, Lauri Markkanen, yes, Thomas Satoransky is not here. Unfortunately, these trades don't go down until the 6th of August. As you see, it is 11:42 a.m., August 4th. But this team, Patrick Williams, this team as a whole has so much potential for the future. Look, there's no doubt in my mind this team can make some noise this year. I have a lot of, I don't want to say high expectations, but I have a lot of hype for the Chicago Bulls, and I hope all the fans do that are diehard Bulls fans or whatever the case may be. I hope they're excited as much as I am to finally see Chicago Bulls basketball again. I'm excited to see good basketball, great basketball, I should say, from this organization happen. I remember, and I felt so bad because I talked to my loyals. Tipper, I know you're watching. I felt bad that the Big Three was going on in Miami during the great days of Joakim Noah, Derrick Rose, Taj Gibson, and the crew. Like, it sucks because those teams had so many opportunities had the Miami Heat not been what we were. That team could have easily won many, many rings. Like, those teams were just amazing. And so to not see that for the past couple of years, and now we're finally going to get it back with the signings of Lonzo Ball, DeMar DeRozan, Caruso, Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso, two defensive-minded guards. I am extremely excited to see how impactful both of those boys bring to this team defensively. There's no question behind the ability defensively that they can make their presence known for this team. And so I could talk about the Bulls all day, but moving on, we're going to go to the Cleveland Cavaliers as they signed Jarrett Allen to a 5-year, I believe, $100 million contract extension. Does he deserve this? Absolutely. Do I feel bad for Jarrett Allen because he's on the Cleveland Cavaliers? Hell yes. But the man deserves this money. So if the Cavs were only going to be the team that gave him this contract, so be it. Make your money, kid. Keep doing your thing. I've been a huge fan. You know, the man just does so much defensively. His defensive presence is just absolutely phenomenal. And I know I'm going to keep saying defense a lot this entire video, but I'm a huge defensive guy. When you have that ability to just stop people at ease or block shots or whatever the case may be, like Jarrett Allen, like Lonzo Ball, and all these players that I keep mentioning, it excites me. I love defense. I love defense and players that are able to play phenomenal defense. I could talk for hours on that, but you know, that was a great signing by the Cavs. You know, they have a bright future, especially with the draft from Evan Mobley. I think he can fit perfect right next to Jarrett Allen. We'll just see how that team, you know, meshes. What that final roster will be starting when the regular season starts. Is Colin Sexton and Darius Garland both going to be playing, you know, on that team? Or is Colin Sexton and Kevin Love going to be traded? As we've seen multiple rumors, multiple trade reports, whatever the case may be. We've seen countless of rumors go that Sexton and Kevin Love will be a package deal, traded out of there to who we don't know. But I think the Cavs, unfortunately, will continue to be a bottom feeder team. I don't see them improving. They have potential, but in my eyes, I just don't see them go anywhere with it. And it sucks to say, but it's, you know, it is what it is. Moving on, the Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks, obviously, they signed, you know, Sterling Brown and Reggie Bullock, two notable, you know, role players who can play their role at ease. We saw Reggie Bullock do wonders in the postseason in that first round against the Atlanta Hawks. He put on, you know, he made some noise. Even last year, as a whole in the regular season, he made some noise for himself. So credit to Reggie Bullock. I mean, he can hoop. He can do his thing. Sterling Brown ultimately has always been, you know, a kind of silent role player in the sense of he doesn't really get too many minutes or whatever the case may be. But, man, I feel like not a lot of people know what Sterling Brown's ability was back in the day. The man can hoop. And so if he has that ability to play minutes and provide for the Dallas Mavericks, I like that pickup for them. Going on, if you have any problem with Bobby, then you're going to have a problem with me. Because Bobby and Toby was always a fire duo. And for them to have split up ultimately, and now Bobby's doing his thing in Dallas, I love the man. He deserves to just continuously be on an NBA team. And I feel like he's finding his team, his presence in Dallas, and making it known. So there's no doubt in my mind. I love this man. He's a freaking GOAT, freak of nature, tall-ass man. And he's just hilarious. If you don't love Bobby, then there is something wrong with you. And lastly, the man of the hour, Mr. Tim Hardaway Jr., the man who I've seen play at Palmetto Senior High down here in Miami. When his pops ultimately played down here. His pops' jersey is retired in now I believe it's FTX Arena, which I don't know if I will continue to ever say that. I think I will legitimately always call it American Airlines Arena. It is the AAA and will forever be the AAA. I'm sorry if you have a problem with that. It is what it is. That's none of my business. But Tim Hardaway Jr., I think he's legitimately found his home in Dallas, and there's no question about it. This team has so much potential. I just don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what the idea is to help Luka ultimately and just be that contender that they need to be. Is this, letting Carlisle go? Is this new coaching staff going to be the difference maker? Are we going to see a New York Knicks Porzingis? Or are we going to see yet again a poorish Kristaps Porzingis? I don't know. I don't know. I want to be hopeful. I want to be hopeful because I love Luka. Ultimately, the Dallas Mavericks might even land Goran Dragic, which we'll talk about in a little bit with the Raptors, sign and trade. But I have so much love for Luka. I have so much love for Tim Hardaway Jr. This team has just so much potential. And I really thought this team and the Phoenix Suns last year were going to be my two dark horses to make the Western Conference Finals. Ultimately, the Dallas Mavericks, ended up losing in horrible fashion. I don't know, man. It just sucks. I want this team to be good. And now with the West potentially even getting better, with the Nuggets being healthy, with the Lakers being what they are, you get Klay Thompson back in the Warriors. The Suns now add height with JaVale McGee, which we'll talk about again. I don't know what the Dallas Mavericks are going to do or can do with the West being what the West is. And so we'll see. But moving forward, we'll talk about the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets, Austin Rivers. I mean, he had his moments. You saw his defensive presence and what he was able to do for that team. Offensively, that's just not what Austin Rivers does. He's not known to be scoring 25 plus points a game. You know what I'm saying? He's just there to give his defensive ability as much as he possibly can and hit a couple threes. That's it. That's all they expected from him. And so being unhealthy with Jamal Murray's torn ACL, ultimately Will Barton being unhealthy, he came back late in that series, but it just was way too late. And I feel like him being healthy, Jamal Murray being healthy, will make such a huge impact for this Denver Nuggets team. Bringing in Jeff Green, his defensive presence as well as his ability offensively to just score, not at will, but just to score in general. We saw it in the Brooklyn Nets versus the Milwaukee Bucks series. He had his sparks. He had his moments when he was healthy because he was battling, I believe it was a knee injury or some sort of leg injury. We saw him have moments where he was able to score at will, hit shots at will. I think we're going to see a wonderful team be able to space the ball out and players just contribute. Michael Porter's going to improve. You get a healthy Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic. The team, if anything, I feel like the Nuggets will be a sleeper team because now they're healthy. And I don't know why people are going to sleep on the Nuggets, but I think the Nuggets will potentially be anywhere between the top three in the West to maybe even the best team in the West. I just think that may be a hot take, but I think this Denver Nuggets team, being so healthy that they are, have so much potential to be great. if Michael Porter can play the way that they were expecting him to, rather than when he all of a sudden turned into hero ball and it just, after he had that crazy first quarter where I believe it was like 6 threes or 5 threes and he was just sparking at will, from that moment on, he hurt his back at halftime. And after that, it was just, I'm playing through a hurt back. I'm playing through a hurt back. I'm going to keep trying to spark it. I'm going to just keep trying to get hot, and whatever the case may be. And it just didn't look like Michael Porter's game. So I think we see a completely different Nuggets team. I think they can finish top 3, maybe even take this team eventually or potentially to a Western Conference Finals where they potentially will face maybe one of the LA teams. I'm not too sure, but I think the Nuggets have, in my eyes, a high expectation because they're all healthy. If they can stay healthy during the regular season, ultimately into the playoffs, we're talking about a phenomenal and a force of a team. Moving on, the Detroit Pistons. I mean, they had a great draft in Cade Cunningham, Luka Garza, 2 freaking phenomenal GOATs. There's no question about it. Adding Kelly Olynyk, my favorite player, and not favorite player, but he showed sparks of, oh my God, the man can just play. After he left the Miami Heat, I believe his numbers went up to about 19.8, 19.5, and it's just to see his improvement after leaving Miami and play how he did in Houston. Hopefully he can transition it to Detroit, and this is a good situation for him. But I don't know. They're in my eyes, there's still a lot of questions in Detroit. So moving forward, the Warriors, I think we all saw it. Steph Curry got a 4-year extension, which was, let me pull it up, worth $215 million. Am I surprised by this? Absolutely not. Does he deserve this kind of contract? Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind Steph Curry does. You can't sit here and tell me he doesn't deserve it. You know what I'm saying? And so, credit to Steph Curry. The man is just great. The man is great. We saw it last year. I feel like this team could make a little deep push, maybe even a championship push with a healthy Klay Thompson. If this team can stay healthy, there's no doubt in my mind that they can make some noise and ultimately, be that sleeper team, be that Phoenix Suns team of last year. Be slept on, be a high ranked team, but bro, I just don't know, bro. You know what I'm saying? They can be maybe a top 3, top 4 team in the West, and then make a push and stir the pot and shock the world. We'll just have to see, but I think the Warriors still got some talent and some GOATs on this roster to just doubt them and think that they can't do anything, in the NBA. Rockets, they acquired Daniel Tice on a sign and trade. Ultimately, I mean, look, Daniel Tice, he's a phenomenal big man. He can rebound, shoot somewhat, but he's known for his rebound and defensive presence. The Rockets, in my eyes, had a great draft in Jalen Green, Josh Christopher. Sorry. It's looking like an AAU team over there. I think someone said that on social media once they finish that draft. They have potential to be great. Their future is bright. I think the Houston Rockets have one of the brightest futures when it comes to potential and players on that roster. The question will be, how are they going to develop? Are they going to develop the way we're all thinking and the way we're all hoping because of talent in the aspect of watching them, whether it was Jalen Green in the G League or Josh Christopher, in his high school days? It's just going to be a question, to say the least, and just see exactly how this team is going to grow and develop. Moving forward, we're going to go to the Indiana Pacers. Signing Torrey Craig, in my eyes, was a big move. You get that presence that he was able to contribute for the Phoenix Suns last year, as well as bringing back TJ McConnell, his defensive ability. The man was a triple-double phenom, shocking the world with his steals, with his defense is just absolutely insane. So bringing him back, I think, will help this team to try and make that push to improve slightly, but there's just too many questions, especially being able, moving away from Aaron Holiday and bringing in Isaiah Jackson, which we'll talk about later. I just don't know how or what the Pacers can really do to improve. and to make that next jump to the 5th, to the 4th, or whatever the case may be, seed in the East. It's just, there's a lot of questions coming out of Indiana. The Clippers, right now, obviously we know Kawhi declined his player option, and Nicholas Batum went back. We're still going to see, or we still have to see about what's going on with Reggie Jackson and all of that good stuff. So, moving on. The Los Angeles Lakers. The Los Angeles freaking Lakers. I think there's no question signing Carmelo Anthony to join the banana boat and be able to play with LeBron James, bringing back Dwight Howard, signing Trevor Ariza, signing Malik Monk, signing the golden arm in Wayne Ellington, signing Kent Bazemore, if he can get back to Atlanta Hawks, Kent Bazemore, signing Kendrick Nunn, who had an arguably surprising and, inconsistent, consistent, whatever. He had a good 2 years in Miami, and ultimately, somehow, some way, being able to retain Talen Horton-Tucker. In my eyes, there is no excuse. There is absolutely no excuse for this Los Angeles Lakers team for them to, ultimately not win the NBA championship this year. Yes, I get it. They're all old as hell. Trust me, I understand that. But you're getting NBA veterans to your bench, and you're getting role players to your bench that they didn't have before. So in my eyes, there's no discussion, there's no debate. If the Los Angeles Lakers do not win the NBA championship, I think this hurts LeBron's legacy. As much as you can say all you want, because I know a lot of LeBron fans, LeBron stans, LeBron meat riders are going to come at me for making that statement. I think, and I told this to my group chat with my IRLs, that this might be the best team surrounded by LeBron James since the Miami Heat. Since the Big Three, I think this is the best team all around that LeBron has been around. You have Trevor Ariza's defensive presence. Carmelo Anthony, he was suspect offensively, but he can still prove and provide that firepower that you need. Wayne Ellington sparks it from God knows everywhere. Talen Horton's a hooper. Dwight Howard won you a ring 2 years ago with his defensive presence. Malik Monk has shocked the world with his ability to play. I know a lot of people don't like him, and he's inconsistent, and whatever the case may be, but whenever it comes to playing against the Miami Heat, that man somehow turns the gas on, or whatever the case may be. You develop in LA, I think he could be a huge impact of a player for that team. Kendrick Nunn may be inconsistent, but give him the ability to shoot, give him the ability to score, give him the ability to, with just the ball in his hands, and I think you see a completely different Kendrick Nunn. Dennis Schroeder, we don't know what the hell's going on, but I don't think he's going to return, as well as ultimately Russell Westbrook, which we'll talk about a bit later with the Washington Wizards. As you could see right here, we'll talk about it just later on. But this team is set up for greatness. This team is set up for winning mentality, for ultimately a championship win. There's no doubt in my mind. There honestly should be no question in my mind that this team wins an NBA championship. I just don't see how they can't. You know what I'm saying? So moving forward, my Miami Heat. I love my team. I'm happy. I'm not extremely happy with Kyle Lowry, getting this $30 million a year. And it sucks to see Goran and Precious go in that sign and trade deal. But if that's what makes Jimmy happy, if that's what hopefully helps us go over a little bit and get us back into the conversation of potentially being a threat in the East, maybe not. I'm not saying we can make it to the NBA Finals. Although I think we can, I think we can make some noise in the East again. We have the players and Kyle Lowry's ability to set people up with his floor general ability. He's probably one of the best floor generals in the NBA to this date. And so, re-signing Jimmy Butler, I believe it was like a $184 million contract. He deserves it. At the end of the day, he deserves it. There's no doubt in my mind. Duncan Robinson, a lot of people were questioning why did we give him a 5-year, $90 million contract. Let me ask you a question as to, why we did that. Duncan Robinson I think, is better than Doug McDermott, number one, who his contract was a 3-year, I believe, $43 million contract, ultimately being $14 million a year average. I think Duncan Robinson deserves more money, ultimately got $4 million more a year. And I think he's better than Joe Harris. Now, a lot of people want to sit here and tell me, oh, Joe Harris has at least defense. Hey, man, Duncan Robinson, you're acting like he literally doesn't play defense. We saw improvement in his defensive ability this year. Now, it's not there where we want it to be, but you saw the flash and the potential of him improving his defense. If he improves in the next 5 years of this contract, as well as continues to be the phenomenal shooter that he is, there's no question in my mind he will end up being better than Joe Harris. So to pay him relatively the same amount of money as Joe Harris, because Joe Harris, if you look at his contract, on average is getting paid $18.75 million, I think Duncan Robinson at 18 flat all 5 years is a very, very big and a very good signing. There's no problem in my eyes why people are questioning this contract. Oh, the Heat are dumb for making this. No. I think we got to pay it. That's what the market is. It's between 16 and 18 million was Duncan Robinson's contract market. And ultimately, we paid him at the top. We paid him his high, and that's what he wanted. Who cares? We move on, and we pray that, he develops the way we expect him to. Adding PJ Tucker's defensive ability, replacing it basically with Iggy, Trevor Ariza, losing Jay Crowder 2 years ago, or I should say a year ago. I think bringing his defensive ability is going to be huge for this team. I was actually surprised that we landed PJ Tucker. I wanted PJ Tucker at the deadline for him to go to Milwaukee, ultimately getting a ring. Congratulations to him. Congratulations again to the Milwaukee Bucks. Well deserved. We'll talk about, right after the Miami Heat. But honestly, I love PJ Tucker's defensive game. The man can do anything. If we need to run small, we can run PJ Tucker. And, of course, the new pickup in Markieff Morris. I know a lot of people don't like this Morris brother. They love Marcus Morris because of his offensive ability. I still love Markieff. I think we play PJ Tucker to start the game and Markieff Morris off the bench and then PJ Tucker to ultimately close. I think PJ Tucker's ability to close out games will be huge for this team, and having Markieff Morris come off the bench to provide that spark that he can defensively, as well as hitting a couple shots, because he's able to shoot from the perimeter. It's not as consistent as his brother, but he's still able to shoot from the perimeter. Dwayne Dedmon, a big man that we've needed to pair up with Bam, who can rebound, who can sit on the perimeter as well and shoot the three ball. Not phenomenal, but shoot the three ball good enough for a big man to shoot. So I love bringing him back. Max Strus, everyone compared him to a freaking miniature and a younger Duncan Robinson. So, hey, he can shoot the ball well. His defense, the same thing with Tyler and Duncan, both a little bit questionable, but it's something that we definitely can develop. I think Miami Heat have one of the best developing teams and developing, developmental player, whatever you want to look at it, or player development teams, that's what I wanted to say, in the entire NBA. So there's no doubt in my mind that Max, Duncan, Tyler, all of them boys defensively, especially getting that leadership from PJ Tucker, Markieff. I think there's no question in my eyes that we see some improvement from this Miami Heat team defensively, as well as ultimately offensively as well. Gabe Vincent, he's balling in the Olympics. He was balling for Team Nigeria. There's no doubt in my mind, no question that he deserves to be back on the Miami Heat. I think right now our biggest key thing that we need to do or we'll look at is getting a potential backup point guard. I just don't know if Gabe Vincent will be that guy or could be that guy behind Kyle Lowry. Now, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I think for the Miami Heat to improve and be that threat. So, some breaking news here. Sorry to interrupt the freaking video, but we just got word a minute ago that Victor Oladipo has agreed to a deal to return to the Miami Heat. And so, Shams just tweeted out, Oladipo will eye 2022 free agency to return to the market and sign a big contract once he's fully healthy. Miami will retain Oladipo's bird rights, allowing them to find the means to sign him again next offseason. So, I guess, you know what I'm saying? He will be able to play by late December or January or even early February. Having Oladipo back on the Miami Heat roster, I think feels like this might actually change this team a little bit even more. If we can get Oladipo healthy, I feel like this could impact the Miami Heat even more and be even more of a threat, to be honest with you. A healthy Oladipo by February and make that deep push later on in the postseason, hopefully will help us potentially win. So I just wanted to toss that in here. Back to your regular scheduled video. Much love, guys. Peace. Right now, all we really need to do is get that backup guard behind Kyle Lowry and ultimately, in my eyes, get another big man that can rebound like Dwayne Dedmon can, shoot the ball somewhat like Dwayne Dedmon can, and ultimately put Bam at the 4. And as hot of a take as that is, I think that's how Bam needs to be playing basketball. I love Bam, and I love that he played the 5 for so many years. After Hassan Whiteside and that whole weird, awkward stage that we had with Bam and Hassan, I think it was best for Bam to come back to the 4, and get a true big man that can shoot the ball and rebound, so that on offense, you run a pick and roll type of offense with Bam rolling to the paint on lobs like what Goran and him used to do, but now with Kyle Lowry, or even you fake that out and dish to Duncan, you dish to Dwayne Dedmon, you dish to all of our perimeter shooters, and there's no doubt in my mind that we can make some noise and prove to the world that we weren't the bubble frauds, or that we weren't frauds, or that the bubble wasn't a fluke, whatever the case may be. I think ultimately we just had a bad year. We had a bad year. We were exhausted. We dealt with injuries. We dealt with COVID. There was just a lot of bad things that happened for this Miami Heat team, and there's no doubt in my mind we see improvement this year, especially with the additions of all of these players that we made in this offseason. Moving on, Milwaukee Bucks. I would have loved to get Bobby Portis to the Miami Heat, but credit to him, bro. Loyalty is huge to him, clearly, and it showed. To sign that 2-year deal, I believe it was about $9 million or something like that. It was very small. It was a very small contract. So for him to just go back on a contract cut when he could have easily gotten paid an extreme amount of money, credit to him. Hats off, to Bobby Portis. Loyalty was huge to him. He wanted to run it back, see if they could potentially go back to back, and it makes sense. Semi Ojeleye, he's had a quiet career in Boston, and I think maybe he'll get the opportunity now with PJ Tucker gone, and maybe he'll get the opportunity in Milwaukee to make some noise for himself, prove to himself that, hey man, a lot of teams have slept on me. Hey man, I can do things that a lot of players were able to do too. I just never was able to be given the opportunity to do so. Ultimately, George Hill as well being waived and planning on returning to the Milwaukee Bucks. It'll be fun to see. I mean, George Hill, he's been in the league for so many years. He's always been that veteran guard to help players improve their game and just be that veteran that needed, that teams needed. So credit to George Hill. The Bucks definitely will appreciate that and need that moving forward. New Orleans Pelicans, we'll talk slightly about Devontae Graham. Obviously, we saw in a sign and trade. And then ultimately adding Thomas Satoransky, Garrett Temple to the Bulls, or from the Bulls in that sign and trade for Lonzo Ball. So I'm very suspect of why this trade even went down, to be honest with you, for Lonzo. I don't know how you just give up this for Lonzo Ball, but I'm not even going to question it at that point. You do your thing, boo. You know what I'm saying? So moving on, we'll go to the New York Knicks. Look, man, I'm not a believer in Evan Fournier. I'm not. But bringing back Alec Burks, bringing back Nerlens Noel and his rim protector ability, bringing back Derrick Rose, and adding Evan Fournier to this roster, look, I think there's no question. There's no question that the Knicks didn't have the great postseason that they expected. They had a great regular season. They proved to a lot of people that this team should not be taken lightly. But I think the biggest thing out of everything for the Knicks is something that happened before I started recording this video. And that is that Kemba Walker is going to be getting bought out by the Oklahoma City Thunder to ultimately join the New York Knicks. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the major over the hump, maybe beating, the Hawks. Maybe this is what they needed to beat the Hawks or whatever the case may be. I don't know. Because Kemba, after leaving Charlotte, you saw a sudden decline in his ability to just, be himself. And I don't know whether it was just Boston being Boston or whatever the case may be, but I'm hoping we can see old Kemba, back and have that ability to just be the Kemba Walker that we all are accustomed to and we all know. And so we'll see. Hopefully this does give them the edge and ultimately maybe improving or maybe staying top 4 in the East or whatever the case may be. So we'll see, but hats off to them for really being able to land Kemba Walker and ultimately, obviously, Evan Fournier, Derrick Rose, and all of these boys that they ended up doing. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on his contract extension, I believe it was about $180-something million, something relatively similar to Trae Young's. And I mean, there's no doubt, there's no question. If you think Shai does not deserve that type of money, then you just, at that point, have not been watching Thunder basketball. You don't know who he is as a player. The man deserves everything and more. For the Thunder to say they want to build around him and ultimately really not, and they just haven't succeeded in expectations. I don't think they had a great draft. I don't think they're doing what they need to build around Shai. I think we're just seeing Shai's career be wasted in Oklahoma. They had that whole rebuild situation after PG got traded, after Russ got moved, all of that stuff. Like, their last hope was CP3. Once CP3 made that move, at that point, there's no doubt in my mind that they just continuously be a bottom feeder, bottom of the league type of team, because, we could say that Lou Dort's going to be an impact for this squad, but I don't know, man. There's just too many questions. I just really don't personally like that draft that they had, and it's unfortunate, bro, because I love this kid to death. He's a hooper. He deserves better, and we're just going to have to see exactly what the Thunder do in the coming years, and that's pretty much that. The Magic, although I love Jalen Suggs, I don't know how that's going to fit. There's just so many guards over there for them to just compete with. It's going to be weird. Credit to them for getting Robin Lopez, though. You have Wendell Carter. Now you got Robin Lopez. And we're just going to have to see how they mesh and what their plans are moving forward as they start now to rebuild and kind of re-image their team with all the moves they ultimately have made so far the past couple years. Moving on, the 76ers. Dwight Howard and Andre Drummond, they should have just done a trade at that point. You know what I'm saying? They flipped spots. Andre Drummond went from the Lakers to the Sixers. Dwight Howard went from the Sixers to the Lakers. And so them getting Andre Drummond, it's going to be very weird to watch, very weird to see, because, I mean, let's be real. We all know about it, and if you don't, well, there's some beef between Joel Embiid and Andre Drummond. This man, Joel Embiid, has never liked Andre Drummond, and honestly, I don't know why. Is it because of his 2020 ability? Is it because Andre Drummond just, was soft when they played each other? I don't know. But it's going to be very interesting to see if Joel can come over that beef that they have between each other and just be like, look, you're my teammate. I'm not going to hate you. I'm not going to, there's not going to be any bad blood here. We're going to try and go win a chip this year. Whatever the case may be, and move on. Korkmaz, the man has always he's been a solid role player. He does what's needed from him in his role for them to be successful. And so Korkmaz bringing him back was ideal. I figured that was going to be the case. Now, Niang, I was a little surprised about. He could shoot the ball well, and they did need shooters. So, I did not expect him to be on their market and their ideal person to sign. But for them to land him, I don't doubt this team to finally be able to get the shooters. Now, one question that goes for the 76ers is ultimately Ben Simmons. What are we going to get from Ben Simmons? Is he going to be able to develop that shot? Or is Ben Simmons going to be moved? And there's just a lot of questions going on in that 76ers organization. But I do personally like that Niang move, as he has the ability to shoot the rock at ease and play a little bit of defense. So we'll see how that goes, because they've missed three-point shooting for so long after, ultimately those years where they had JJ Redick and Marco Bellinelli. For them to just struggle without shooters, it just that was their problem, and it just sucks. Moving on. Phoenix Suns, are they going to be able to run it back? Are they going to be able to take it back to the NBA Finals and ultimately maybe win this year? I don't know. We'll see. But bringing back Chris Paul on a 4-year, $120 million deal was absolutely crazy to me. I believe I read that when his career is done, when he hits 40 after this 4-year deal, if he plays all the way through, the man will have earned $443 or $444 million in his entire career in the NBA. And there will be the most amount of money earned by a player. It will surpass LeBron, who I believe LeBron right now is at 376. I'd have to double check those stats, but the fact that he will surpass LeBron in the sense of contract is that like contract or money that he's made in the NBA is crazy to me. It's just crazy to me, and he still hasn't won a ring. So hopefully this year, they have the opportunity to run it back and maybe lift that trophy at the end of the year. Bringing back Cameron Payne was a huge thing for me. When Chris Paul was injured, they relied on Cameron Payne. Cameron Payne brought that spark off the bench, and was just truly able to do what was needed from him in his role to be successful for the Phoenix Suns. Ultimately, he ended up tweaking his ankle, and it kind of affected the Suns, and also obviously losing Dario Saric, not having that presence from Big Shot Rob. There was things that happened to the Phoenix Suns late in their run. And it's just unfortunate. It is what it is. But adding JaVale McGee was huge because now there's no question. You get hurt, you lose Big Shot Rob, you lose Kaminsky, whatever the case may be, you have JaVale McGee. You have JaVale McGee behind DeAndre Ayton, and I think DeAndre and JaVale are going to be huge, impactful players for this team in that center position, to say the least. Abdel Nader, the man has great defensive presence and great defensive ability to come off that bench whenever Mikal needs to take the rest, or Jay Crowder if he gets into foul trouble, whatever the case may be. Ultimately, he was dealing with some injuries throughout the entire regular season, but he was dealing with some injuries, so he didn't really get to play early on in the postseason. Later on down the road, he finally was cleared to play, and Monty had no other option but to give him the ability to play with foul trouble from Mikal, from Jay Crowder, slow starts from both of those players. He was able to show that he could play defense. He definitely could play some defense, and if you didn't see that, then you just didn't watch the NBA Finals, and you didn't watch their series against the Clippers, to say the least. Moving on, the Blazers. Norman Powell coming back. Smart move by the Blazers. I believe in Norman Powell, truthfully. There's no doubt in my mind that I think he just had a sluggish postseason. There's no question about it. Like, it is what it is. He can't be consistent every night. You can't expect, players like him to be consistent every night, drop 23, 24 a night. That's where CJ McCollum is supposed to be doing, and ultimately he didn't, which ultimately sold, I think, Damian Lillard. But bringing him back was ideal. Cody Zeller, obviously joining this team, was huge in my eyes. Now you have Yusuf Nurkic and Cody Zeller on this squad, to provide, in the big man role. So we'll see how Cody Zeller plays, on this team with his rebounding ability, his defensive presence. And I just don't know, bro. This Blazers team is just very questionable. It's very questionable because there are so many things that went wrong that hopefully they can overcome. And so losing Melo, losing all of these players that they did, we'll see how it goes. But I'm just hoping that they can at least make a deeper push in the postseason. I just don't think this team can win a championship the way that it's built right now. In my opinion, if you think otherwise, then please tell me what I did wrong. Moving on, the Sacramento Kings adding Mo Harkless, Alex Len, Rashawn Holmes, all great players. The Kings are the Kings, bro. We can't really talk too much about them. There's not really much debate or discussion about it. It is what it is. They're just always going to be the Sacramento Kings, and that's that. Moving on, San Antonio Spurs adding Zach Collins and Doug McBuckets. Like I mentioned earlier, 3-year, 42.3 or 43.2 deal. I think Doug McBuckets is able or will be able to replace, DeMar DeRozan. Won't be as effective, though, because DeMar was averaging, I believe, 21.9 or 21.8. I don't think Doug McBuckets can get up there, but he will be able to make an impact for this team to replace DeMar's ability. And Zach Collins being paired up with Jakob Poeltl will be also another question, and see how that works. And so moving forward, we're just going to have to see how they mesh up, how Greg Pop ultimately coaches this team and whatnot. So there's no doubt in my mind that the Spurs will continue to be just the San Antonio Spurs. But I just don't see them really doing much. I think they just continue to be around a 9, 10, maybe 11 seed team in the West until they add those firepowers that they really, ultimately need. Moving forward, the Raptors, Goran Dragic heading over to Toronto in that sign and trade deal, like I mentioned. Gary Trent, beautiful player. He's phenomenal. I think he'll provide that spark ultimately after losing Kyle Lowry. Sam Decker, welcome back to the NBA, brother. He's had his moments. He's been a meme for so long, for so many different reasons, but I think his ability to come back to the NBA to, showcase his talents will be huge for the Toronto Raptors. Gary Trent Jr., love the kid. He's a phenomenal player. I'm excited to see how he progresses and develops in this rotation. Ultimately, as well as Precious Achiuwa, who will be going with Goran Dragic to the Toronto Raptors. But Goran is already looking at potentially being rerouted to a Dallas or getting bought out or whatever the case may be, and ultimately signing with Dallas. He wants to join, the Mavericks. That's his first team that he wants to go to. And so I don't think we see Goran even suit up in a Toronto Raptors jersey. But if he ends up doing so, we'll see you soon. I love you, Goran. I think number 7 needs to be retired in the Miami Heat arena. Now, moving on. The Utah Jazz, Mike Conley. There's not a lot of people that are going to want to join Utah. Let's be real. You get Rudy Gay and you get Hassan Whiteside. Congratulations. You got two impactful players in a sense of role players. But there's not much you can really do. So for Conley to want to stay in Utah, you have to give him the money. You have to give him the contract and do with what you can. So, Utah was number 1 in the West, but a lot of teams got better. A lot of teams are going to be healthy, and I don't know if Utah is, if Utah's really that going to be that number 1 or number 3. I have Utah maybe around 5 or 6, to be honest with you. But hopefully I'm wrong. So we'll see. Moving on with the final team in the NBA that made moves. And then I got one person that just came in during the episode that I want to talk about. The Wizards. Spencer Dinwiddie is going to the Washington Wizards, and credit to them. I think this fit with Dinwiddie and Bradley Beal, in my eyes, this might be a hot take, will be a lot better of a fit than Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal. You have Russell Westbrook going from a 9, shooting 9 for 25 or whatever the case may be, shooting very inefficient, to Dinwiddie, who I think can shoot efficiently. I think Dinwiddie will shoot the ball less as well as make more shots. And so getting Spencer Dinwiddie will be huge for this team. Having Kyle Kuzma, having KCP's defensive presence, who they clearly were huge on, which is why they added him to this trade, as well as Montrezl Harrell. I mean, look, there are a lot of things that they got for Russell Westbrook. There's no doubt in my mind that the Washington Wizards have potential to be good. I think they can be a 6 to 8 seed team like they have been, or like they were last year, I should say. But anything higher is a very, very rough thing to do with the East improving the way they have. And so ultimately, yes, they got the number 22 pick in the draft from the Los Angeles Lakers, but that pick ended up being traded to the Pacers for Aaron Holiday. So now they have a backcourt of Aaron Holiday, Spencer Dinwiddie, Bradley Beal, and the list goes on. KCP, and the list goes on. Raul Neto, and so forth. So we're just going to have to see exactly how this team, develops with all of the players that they acquired from Kuzma, KCP, Harrell, Aaron Holiday, Spencer Dinwiddie. They have potential. A lot of teams in the East and the West, a lot of teams in the NBA have potential. The question will be execution. How are they going to mesh well? How is team chemistry going to work? How are they going to execute wins? Or they, whatever the case may be, if they go on a losing streak, are they going to just, heads down, bro, we suck, or whatever the case may be? Are they going to build each other up to improve each and every night? Or we're going to see teams just crumble and ultimately just continue to just take on that role of being, well, yeah, we suck, so good night. And so hopefully the Wizards, show a lot of people that they still can be a 6 to 8 seed team. I know a lot of people doubted them, or a lot of people, didn't think that they should have been there in the playoffs and whatnot, but I think they'll make some noise. I don't think they get out the first round with this squad, to be honest with you. If I get shocked and surprised, then so be it, but depending on who their matchup is in the playoffs, I just don't know if they can really come out of the first round. Last thing, really quick, during this episode, or I shouldn't say episode, during this video, Adrian Wojnarowski tweets out, Enes Kanter signs a 1-year deal to go back to the Boston Celtics. So, seeing Enes Kanter back in Boston, we'll see how that goes. We'll see ideally what the Boston Celtics can do. There's a lot of questions coming from them too. Like, they were a 6th seed or a 7th seed or whatever the case may be. And yes, I mean, you can look at Jaylen Brown being injured as one of the reasons why they were so low, but I'm going to be totally honest with you. I don't know if it was just him. There were so many things wrong with this squad, and I don't have the answer for it. I love Marcus Smart, I love Jason Tatum, and I love Jaylen Brown. What is their problem, and what do they need to fix or figure out coming up into this next season? That's the question for the Boston Celtics, in my eyes, moving forward with Brad Stevens as the ultimate new president of operations. And there's just a lot of questions from my end for that camp. So we're just gonna have to see exactly what they're gonna be doing. But I appreciate you guys watching. I love you guys. Thank you so much. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hey man, that's NBA Talks for you with your boy Rabbit. You know what I'm saying? So other than that, I'm out. Peace.